r/neckbeard stories by Redmond Dts. The Tale of Armybeard. Back when I was in the army, there was a fellow I worked with in my platoon, and for the sake of privacy, I will address him as Armybeard. Even though he didn't have a neck beard, because the army has grooming standards for soldiers, he definitely embodied the neckbeard spirit. He wasn't blatantly a bad person. He just didn't understand things like social cues, and quite frankly, didn't have common sense. Not to be mean, but he simply didn't belong in the military. It's not a job for everyone, because it requires things like discipline, physical fitness, and a sense of responsibility, all of which he was lacking. He was overweight, late all the time, and really just didn't care about his job, and in the military, these things can get someone killed. The weird thing is that even though he didn't like being in the army, the only thing he wore was grunt-style clothing. It was like even though he hated being in the army and was absolutely miserable, he still wanted to show off how he was a service member. My leadership tried for well over a year to set him straight, but despite their efforts, nothing worked. Being patient with him never worked. Nitpicking his every move until he got better never worked. It came to the point where a lot of people thought my platoon was bullying him, which was simply not the case. We never singled him out, called him mean names, or were physically violent towards him. He was a walking r/army post, and it was honestly incredible. There are so many stories about him that I wish I could tell, but not even this Reddit post could contain them. I will stick with the most memorable ones. Cast of characters: Meop, Armybeard, my good friends and co-workers Nathan, Jonathan, Sergeant Brady, Sergeant Rivers, Armybeard's direct supervisor, Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, and First Lieutenant Warner. I first met Armybeard about 8 months into my time at my second duty station. He arrived to my unit coming from Korea, and at first he didn't really seem like a bad guy, but it didn't really take long for us to see what kind of a person he truly was. Armybeard arrived 2 months to my unit before we were deploying to Eastern Europe, and we were quite busy packing up all our equipment and prepping our vehicles to be shipped overseas. Oftentimes we worked over the weekends. We were that busy, and because of this, we spent a lot of time around Armybeard. Before he really told anything about himself to my platoon, he told us about his fiancée he met on Tinder 4 months before then, who happened to be just an hour away from his home in West Virginia. Keep in mind, Armybeard just got back to the States 2 weeks before this, and really only has seen her in person once, maybe twice, and yet he had already decided to marry her. Another red flag is that she has 4 kids each from a different guy, and since soldiers are guaranteed things like a paycheck, free healthcare, free housing, and free food, I would not be surprised if she just wanted to marry him for these reasons. Outside the military, I wouldn't have cared so much, but in the military you have to make sure your soldiers meet their needs, are not in debt, and are taking care of themselves. If Armybeard decided to claim her children as his own, and she decided to divorce him, he would be spending over half of his monthly income on child support. His fiancée simply has not proven herself to be a loyal person, and we worried about him, but unfortunately it's not legal in the military to force your subordinates to not marry someone. You might think that there's still a chance that she loved Armybeard, but I can assure you she didn't. She avoided nearly every single opportunity to come out and see him, and made no plans to move in with him, even after getting married. When my unit was being deployed to Eastern Europe, she didn't come to the goodbye ceremony, and when we came back, she missed the welcome back celebration because she was at Walmart with her kids, shopping for a mattress. When he wanted her to come over for Halloween, she said no, because of holiday traffic. The scary thing is that he wouldn't even question these things. He would just go along with all these obvious red flags like they were no issue at all. If Armybeard was the love of her life, then why did she miss all these opportunities to spend time with him? I honestly felt pretty bad for him. Sure, he has caused a lot of embarrassment for my platoon for things I will explain later in this post, but these things didn't warrant someone to take advantage of him and his money. He told pretty much everybody he met about her, but would never pick up on the fact that pretty much nobody cared and how they thought it was weird how he's marrying a girl he met only once or twice. And sure enough, Armybeard married her the day my unit was being sent overseas thousands of miles away for 9 months. All my platoon could do then was teach him how to be a husband and a father. This was soon found to be a difficult task. Roughly 3 weeks after my unit arrived to Europe, all of our gear and personal items we didn't bring with us on the plane arrived in shipping containers. While my platoon and I was unpacking our stuff near our bunks, we soon discover Armybeard brought 2 flashlights with him, and we were all baffled as to why he brought not only 1, but 2 of them. We were staying in a giant tent, and there was no way he could do his business without getting caught. Yes, we were staying in a tent, but it was more comfortable than it sounds. It was well insulated and had 2 big generators for air conditioner and heating. It wasn't that bad to be honest. Anyways, to get back on topic, after we found out he brought 2 flashlights, we of course asked him why he brought them. Sergeant First Class Gonzalez. Why the hell would you bring those, and why the F do you have to? You know you can't jerk off in the wide open in the tent, right? Armybeard. It's because they were buy one get one free Sergeant First Class. I actually tried to give one to someone else, but I couldn't find anyone to give it to. Other than being buy one get one free still doesn't explain why you brought 2. You could have just brought 1 and been fine. And why would you offer 1 to someone else? How would they know you didn't use it before? I brought them both because they were buy one get one free. You're clearly not listening to me. You know what? Just go about your business. I can't deal with this BS. Flash forward a couple months later, while we were in Europe, my platoon, specifically Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Sergeant Brady, and Jonathan, was checking up on him and making sure he was trying to improve himself as husband and a father. Sergeant Brady. Armybeard, have you done any research on how to be a father and increase your parenting skills? No Sergeant, I haven't had any time. Don't fucking lie to me. What do you mean you haven't time? All you do all day is sit on your bunk and watch Naruto. You are not a single soldier anymore. You need to take this seriously, because you now have 5 people who depend on you. You can't just sit on your ass and expect things to work themselves out. Even though you have a wife to help out, you can't expect her to do all the work. Yes Sergeant, but I don't even know where to look. Armybeard, you cannot be serious right now. You can find all this stuff on the internet. You are 23 years old, and I know you are more than capable of doing simple research. You also have me, Jonathan, and Gonzales who have kids of our own. If your wife comes out and tells the army that you are incapable of being a father and are not providing for them, you can get in serious trouble. If you love your kids, you need to start showing it. Actually, you know what? What are their birthdays? This one really stumped Armybeard, and it was quite incredible to see. Every day he talked about how much he loved his kids and how he couldn't wait to see them when we got back, but yet he didn't even know their birthdays. It was honestly really pathetic. You think this would have motivated him to do better, but it really didn't. About a week after this, Armybeard really wanted to show how much of a leader he could be, so he could get promoted. Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Sergeant Rivers, and Sergeant Brady decided to throw him a bone and give him a chance. To do this, they gave him simple tasks to show off his leadership skills and would be put in charge of me, Jonathan, and Nathan. Despite being given super easy tasks that even the newest soldier could figure out, he would fail very hard every single time. He would often just ask us for help and just pretty much left us to figure everything out for him ourselves and take all the credit. Even when given the task of bringing the platoon's laptop to the unit's IT guys, he failed drastically. He was told that morning to bring the laptops by 1 PM, but he fell asleep and lost track of time. Sergeant Brady. Armybeard, why the fuck are you sleeping right now? My bad Sergeant, I overslept. Oh yeah, doofus, I can fucking see that. Why the hell didn't you bring our laptop to the IT guys? Every time we give you a simple task you somehow manage to fail. No excuses, Sergeant. I'm really not in the mood for that right now, Armybeard. If you can't even do this, then how do we know you have the ability to take care of a family? Stop playing around. We are going to give you one last chance to show your leadership. You are going to give a class on the M249 machine gun to the platoon, since you, Op, and Nathan have to qualify with it next week. If you can do that, we will continue to give you opportunities to show your leadership skills. A few days later, he gave his class, and it was honestly quite horrible. He pretty much just copied and pasted things from the weapons training manual into his PowerPoint. He obviously had no clue what he was talking about, and his class was super boring. Half the time First Lieutenant Warner, the officer in charge of the platoon at the time, was the one teaching it, and was showing the proper firing positions. Flash forward to next week. Our platoon went on a 2-hour drive to the shooting range. My unit was hosting the M249 range. After we downloaded our weapons and ammo, got everything prepped, the range went live. And it just so happened that I was the assigned to be Armybeard's target spotter. When Armybeard was getting his ammo ready to start shooting, he decided to pull the trigger as he was loading the rounds into his weapon, causing it to spray 4-5 rounds straight into the ground 2 feet away from my foot. Despite nearly having my foot blown off, I started laughing my ass off. Armybeard. What the fucking fuck? Why did it start firing like that? Armybeard, stop swearing at the gun and get off the range now. Armybeard went off to talk with Sergeant Rivers and Sergeant Brady, and while I didn't hear exactly what they said, I do know that they told him that he was not allowed to handle any weapon for a very long time, and to stop talking about it with everyone, further embarrassing himself. I do have many more stories about Armybeard, but I might stop here since this post is becoming incredibly long. I'm not sure how well this story will be received, but if you want me to write more stories about him, I will. The 10 of Armybeard Part 2, The Downfall. After a couple comments saying that they wanted more, I will now write Part 2 of Armybeard. Part 1 ended with Armybeard nearly blowing off my foot because of his own stupidity, and in this post I will cover the aftermath of this incident and the downfall of Armybeard. Following the incident in my last post, Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers talked to Armybeard to calm him down, because at this point he was hyperventilating and gagging. Whenever Armybeard screws up, he hyperventilates and starts to gag. Sometimes he actually throws up, and it's absolutely hilarious to see. He'll still do these things, even after we tell him that he's not in trouble, and that he needs to chill. Anyways, Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers were telling him that he more than likely will get an Article 15. For those who don't know, an Article 15 is a punishment in the military for doing something serious, like repeatedly missing work, disrespecting your leadership, and in Armybeard's case, a negligent discharge. It can entail loss of rank and pay, and having to extra duty after work hours. The length of the punishment can vary, and while it does suck, it is not the end of the world. Even some of the best soldiers out there have received one in their career. The crazy thing is that, if he didn't give a class on the weapon the week prior, he could have just said that he wasn't properly trained with the weapon, and then someone else would have been yelled at. After hearing that he was going to receive an Article 15, Armybeard started to panic even more. Eventually Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers got him to calm down, and when they did, they told him to not talk about it with anyone, because he'll just embarrass himself even further. You'll never guess what he did next. He started to talk about what happened to the civilian operating the targets downrange and making sure that they are in working condition. The nice civilian pretty much told Armybeard the same thing that Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers did, and that he was going to be fine, and he won't get kicked out of the military. Later that weekend, Armybeard went to the convenience store that was on the base we were stationed at, and bought some alcohol, and brought it back to the tent my platoon was staying in. This was one of the few places where you were not allowed to have alcohol. Sergeant First Class Gonzales saw that Armybeard brought back alcohol and told him to throw it away. Sergeant First Class Gonzales wasn't mad at all. He was just going to pretend he never saw Armybeard had it and move on if Armybeard simply threw it away. The issue was that Armybeard went all the way to the other side of the tent and started handing it out to people, and while doing so, my commander saw him. When Armybeard saw my commander, he hid the alcohol behind his back like a little kid. Any chance of Armybeard not receiving Article 15 at that point just went out the window. My commander said he even wanted him out of the army, but fortunately for Armybeard that was not his call to make. Yes, Armybeard wanted out of the army, but he at least wanted to finish honorably, so he can still keep his benefits, like free school and healthcare. My whole brigade, roughly 3,000 people, heard about this incident, and now everyone knew who we were, the platoon with the complete failure. Even well after the deployment I heard about people I didn't even know still talking about him. Shit was unreal. A few days later, while Jonathan and I were on guard duty, Armybeard starts to talk about his time in Korea. Having been stationed there before, I was interested in what his experience was like, and my ears perked up. Not too long into the conversation, Armybeard tells Jonathan about how he got drunk and accidentally hooked up with a ladyboy. The look on Jonathan's face was absolutely priceless. I don't know about you guys, but if that happened to me, I would have taken that shit to the grave. My whole platoon heard about this and wondered if Armybeard told anyone else about this, but thankfully we didn't hear about this from anybody else. Armybeard also told him how he spent nearly an entire paycheck on a juicy girl. For those who are not aware, juicy girls in Korea are women who you can buy drinks for, and they'll sit down and talk with you. After spending about $300 on them, that's usually when they'll go home and sleep with you. However, the juicy girl Armybeard did not do this with him, even though he spent nearly triple that on her. Armybeard just loves telling embarrassing stories about himself, like they are no big deal, even though they make him look like an absolute dumbass. The following week was pretty chill and quiet, aside from the fact that my platoon was sick. You might be wondering what's so interesting about that. Well, it's because a bunch of people even outside my unit were saying that it was because we were sharing Armybeard's flashlights. People outside of my unit knew he brought flashlights with him. This led to Sergeant First Class Gonzales to having to sit down with us and tell us that we needed to get our shit together, even though Armybeard was the one who screwed up. Sergeant First Class Gonzales is a very chill guy, but you do not want to get on his bad side. He didn't single Armybeard out because Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers chewed him out so much, people were starting to think we were singling him out, even though we weren't. The guy was just such a screw up. We all knew how this happened. It was because Armybeard does not know how to shut his mouth. Who he told about the flashlights we don't know, but we do know it was because of him. That weekend me, Nathan, and a few other people went to a mall nearby and saw a booth that had little boxes with the one chip challenge. For those who are not aware what it is, the one chip challenge is where you have to eat an insanely spicy chip and last 5 minutes without a drink or anything to help soothe the heat. We bought one for the both of us, Sergeant Rivers, and of course Armybeard. When Armybeard saw me and Nathan eat our chips, he started to laugh at our pain and talk his shit. You guys are such babies. I bet it's not even that spicy. It was now Armybeard's turn to do the challenge. He eats the chip and doesn't even last 30 seconds before he starts to panic and run for his drink. Sergeant Brady however hid his drink, and this set Armybeard in even more of a panic. Armybeard runs outside and starts throwing up everywhere, and he's sick for the next day or two. This moment definitely humbled him, and he stopped talking shit for a while. I wish I could share the videos we took of this, but unfortunately I must respect his privacy. The next month and a half was pretty calm, and my unit was preparing to head to Germany for a 10-day training exercise that would certify us to deploy again. It was pretty much a laser tag war simulator, where my brigade had to fight against the great fictitious nation of Denovia. At this point Armybeard has received his Article 15 and got demoted, lost his pay, and had extra duty for 45 days. This had definitely gotten Armybeard to quiet down, and he was pretty behaved. The first 2 weeks of Germany were pretty hectic, because he had to unpack our gear again, and get everything prepped. After 2 weeks, the field training exercise began. The first 2 days were quiet, and there weren't any sightings of Denovian nationals. On night 3, Armybeard was placed on guard duty with Jonathan and Sergeant Brady in a Humvee, overlooking the south end of an airfield. My platoon's Humvees were pretty cool, and on the top of them, they had a turret with a camera controlled with a joystick remote inside the vehicle. They're super cool, and it's honestly like a video game. They're called Crows, and you can look them up to get a better sense of what I'm talking about. Anyways, Armybeard was in the gunner seat, and at around 11 PM he sees Denovian trucks peeling onto the airstrip, and Sergeant Brady gives Armybeard the call to light them up. However, instead of pulling the trigger and turning the Denovians into Swiss cheese, he hops out of the vehicle and tries to shoot them with his M4. He is of course immediately killed, and Sergeant Brady and Jonathan hop out to save him, and are also killed. Roughly 50-60 people including me died, because of Armybeard's stupid mistake. Sergeant First Class Gonzales and Sergeant Brady absolutely go ballistic on Armybeard, and I heard every single word, even though I was a few hundred feet away from them. My memory is a little bit fuzzy, but they were pretty much fed up with him, and told him that he is not a soldier, and doesn't belong in the military. Armybeard was doing what he always did when screwed up, and was hyperventilating and gagging. At one point he actually did throw up. I was absolutely dying of laughter, and couldn't believe what happened. It was non-stop entertainment with this guy. The rest of the training exercise went smoothly, and Armybeard kept his head down. Soon after the training exercise ended, my brigade packed everything up and headed back home to the States. After getting home, everyone was acclimating to being back in the United States, and a little birdie told Sergeant First Class Gonzales that Armybeard was going home to West Virginia when he wasn't supposed to, since he was only allowed to go 250 miles from base if he wasn't on leave. Sergeant First Class Gonzales then has Sergeant Brady and Sergeant Rivers to check all our vehicles, can't single anyone outright, to make sure there weren't safety issues, and that they were registered and insured. Soon after we find out Armybeard has been driving around uninsured for the past month. If he hit someone, he could have been in deep shit, not just with the state we were in, but also the military. Sergeant First Class Gonzales just wanted to see what Armybeard's odometer read, but we found a much bigger issue. It turns out Armybeard's wife never added him to her insurance plan, and he pretty much just took her word that she did, and that was that for him. Didn't follow up or nothing. This caused Sergeant First Class Gonzales to blow up on him, and told Armybeard to get in his office immediately. Unfortunately I didn't hear what they said, because I was somewhere else preparing to get out of the army. Sergeant First Class Gonzales told me to come back to him when I had my DD-214 proof of service form you get right before you leave the military, and he would tell me, because I would be a civilian then. Unfortunately Sergeant First Class Gonzales forgot about this deal, and I never got to hear what he told Armybeard. And that brings an end to the tale of Armybeard Part 2. This was fun, and I have been meaning to tell his tale for a while, but I've never really gotten around to it. If you want some more stories, I'm sure I can remember some more for you guys, and I'll tell them down in the comments. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.